All right. Well, welcome to our webinar today, how you can level up your live stream without leveling up your budget. My name is Matt Peoples. I am the founder and director of the Kairos Network, and it's so much fun doing these webinars. And I have been looking forward to this webinar, Tanner, for probably a solid month. I'm so excited that you guys get to hear from Tanner. Before we invite Tanner on, I want to show you guys why I'm so excited about this. Tanner recently came out to a district that I'm connected with, the New Jersey district, and we invited 21 churches out to our church, and we invited them to do a live stream conference where they would learn to use a $2,000 system that Tanner put together that would enable them to use Video Switcher and do live production stuff. I thought we would have 8 churches sign up. To be honest with you, I would have been elated if 8 churches signed up. 21 signed up. We had them in our gym. It literally looked like NASA in there. You know, you've got everybody setting up their equipment. Show you a couple of these pictures. It's unbelievable. But you can kind of see just everybody like sitting there. And what I loved about this conference and what I thought was so powerful, and Tanner did such a good job of, and I can't rave about you enough for this, Tanner, is it didn't matter. We had one guy at the conference who literally was on the tech team for Rutgers University that had to send the entire school to online classes in 3 weeks. So you can imagine what level of technical ability he has. And we had literally the group that I would classify Grandma Schmidt, who probably has zero technical ability, maybe has an iPhone. And Tanner, in the way you presented the system and how to use that system in a way that connected with the tech guru and Grandma Schmidt. And so I was so excited when you decided to do this webinar with us. So Tanner, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And yeah, just the opportunity. And it's so exciting. 21 churches, like just knowing that the word of God is going out digitally in 21 more churches, you know, that's awesome. And that's exciting right there.
And you know what's amazing to me is, you know, a lot of times we think live stream, and of course we were thrust into this because of COVID. Mm-hmm. We think live streaming well, and we think of big churches, big budgets.
Yeah.
But really, with what you've put together and a lot of the churches you work with, you're working with small to medium-sized churches, small budgets, mm-hmm. who want to do what they're doing well. And yeah. I think that's what's been so exciting about working with you, and why I'm so excited to kind of share this system with everybody that you put together. So Tanner, you know, without further ado, people don't want to hear me talk anymore. I want to let you guys know, if you have questions, throw them in the questions section, and we'll be responding to those as we go. And then, of course, in our chat right now, we've got a wish list, and I'm actually going to update that wish list as Tanner starts. This is every single product that Tanner's talking about, right down to the cords. So you'll be able to, you could literally order this if you wanted to during or after this webinar. So Tanner, could you just get us kicked off by talking about the equipment you picked out and why you picked each piece out?
Yeah. So just a quick little rundown on it. The first live stream system that I actually got the chance to put together, I was a creative director at a large church, and they said, we want to do a big live stream system, multi-camera, and we spent over $38,000 putting that system together. And it works great, still working great to this day. The system that we used during this workshop back in New Jersey a couple of weeks ago can actually accomplish more in a smaller package, and it's much easier than that giant $38,000 system that we put together. Now, granted, that was about 5 years ago when we did that, so things change on a weekly basis right now, as you'll even see, you know, in that wish list and that shopping cart. These things are changing kind of on a weekly basis. The Atom Mini Pro, there's actually another version of it out now. But we stuck with this system for kind of a couple different reasons, kind of a threefold thing. The reason that I kind of put this system together is that I've been on the other side. I was a youth and young adult pastor at a Lutheran church in California for a number of years. And so I was on the ministry side and got tasked with, hey, we wanted, at that time we wanted to podcast. We wanted to just be able to record the sermons. We wanted to release them. We wanted to add some things in there. And so brought in a big company to, hey, how would we do this? And it was just an astronomical fee. So I've been on the other side, on the ministry side of things. Like I said, I was in ministry for about 10 years before I decided to go full-time into video and live broadcast. And some of the things that I noticed was just the ease of use. Like, there were so many little steps, and you have to have this just perfect to make it talk with this piece of equipment. And so that is one of the big things why I feel like this system is so important, is just the ease of use. This is something that your volunteers can use. It has big light up buttons that you can push. And so it's a really simple to use system, because so many of our ministries, a lot of churches, they don't have the funding for a full-time technical director, or full-time creative director, or video operator, something like that. And so you're relying on your volunteers. And so that's number one. This thing is super easy to use. Number two is definitely the cost. It's, the price has changed just a hair. Looking in that shopping list right now, it looks like it's about $32 more than I originally projected.
It looks like they need a login for the list. So if you want to, feel free, Tanner, like pop open that list on your computer, and even feel free to screen share. Feel free to screen share if you want to, so people can kind of see it as you're talking about it.
Okay.
This is the list, and we'll make sure you guys have an updated copy of this that Tanner's talking about. But like I said, right down to the chords.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the exact cords that you would need, here's the Atom Mini Pro, the monitors. So, the camera, the hard drives, everything. So everything is laid out. But I mean, we went from a $38,000 system to a $2,032 system. So, and this thing is capable of so many different things. It's expandable out to, if you want to run 3 cameras and presentation software, or you want to bring a DVD player in or something like that, you've got 4 inputs to play with on this thing. And so let me actually flip over real quick here.
And while Tanner's showing this to you, a couple things that really stuck out to me while he's pulling that up. The camera he picked out. I think the camera that Tanner picked out is amazing, because you could set it farther back in a sanctuary, and the clarity as you zoom in is unbelievable. We had people that were set up toward the back of the gym, and then they were kind of like panning the camera in, zooming it into Tanner, and you could have seen a bead of sweat in HD on his forehead with that camera. So
there was a lot of sweat going on that day.
Phenomenal camera. The switcher, having used other kinds of switchers in the past, is really powerful, but I felt like really simple to use. Which I think is important. So Tanner, let's talk through these components.
So if we start with the switcher, you can kind of see here your inputs right here. You've got 4 inputs. You have an HDMI out, which kind of allows you to see all 4 of those inputs and what they're showing. So you can see ahead of time, whoever's on camera 1, is it in focus? Is it the shot that we want? You can see it ahead of time. So that's what that HDMI out is for. You've got the ability over here, you've got 2 microphone inputs. So these can be, off of your soundboard, if you have a soundboard. I've talked with a lot of churches that, a lot of churches are mobile right now. They don't have a big old sound system, or they're pre-recording. And so you can pick up some things like this here, which these are just a little wireless lav mic. So one of them goes on your speaker, and the other one just plugs in right here to mic 1. It can literally be as simple as that. And now you've got a microphone system as well. So it's expandable. You have 4 inputs, like we said. You can use this USB out right here. You can use that for multiple things. You can either plug a hard drive into it, or you can plug a computer into it to be able to unlock a bunch of other functions of this switcher. You also have a Cat6 connection right here. You can plug a computer into that as well and bring it up onto a network and be able to run this thing. You can even run it remotely if you're really tricky and know what you're doing. And so it's just a really robust little piece of equipment, and it's fairly cheap. And literally, here are the buttons right here. If you want camera 1, you push camera 1. You want camera 3, you push camera 3. And that's how simple this system is. You have a bunch of other things. You can do pictures and pictures. So you can put, your pastor up in one corner and have a sermon, slide showing up full screen. You can do all kinds of different things like that. It's also really nice. You have recording built into it. So if you have a hard drive, you can plug your hard drive right into that little USB out right there, and you can record directly to a hard drive. So if you're going to record all of your messages and then release them on YouTube or on Facebook later, you're going to take that and edit it and then release it later. You can do that right here without even being connected to a computer or something like that.
Which brings up, Tanner, a really good question that just came in, and maybe you're going to address this, but Ryan Oakes asked, is the computer necessary to stream live with the Atom Mini, or can it directly stream?
That's a really good question. So it is necessary to stream live. You have to have some sort of interface. Let me switch to the other camera here, so you're not just seeing my hands talking. So you have to have some sort of interface to put your stream key. So anytime you create a live stream or something like that with YouTube or with Facebook, you have to have some way to put that stream key into the Atom. And so you do have to have a computer. Now, it doesn't always have to be hooked up, but you do have to have some way to get that stream key into the Atom Mini. Now, I've heard some things, some discussions on, possibly coming up with something that's like an iPad or something like that that allows you to connect some way. But as far as I know right now, and definitely dig into this if you want to, as far as I know, you need to have some sort of computer, that can get you up and running online.
And let me ask you kind of a follow-up question to that, because if I'm going to use one computer to send me up online, which most people probably had to do anyways.
Yeah.
But then if I want to run presentation software, am I going to want to use a different computer, or can I use the same computer I'm using to run it to live stream to run the presentation? What would your suggestion be?
So it is possible. You can kind of have it loop out. You can have the computer controlling the Atom Mini and then also coming out via HDMI on the computer into one of the inputs. The only reason that I don't suggest that is that's a big workload on that computer. So yes, again, it is possible, but I wouldn't recommend it. Now, that being said, if you've got a really robust, a gaming laptop or something like that that's got a lot of power behind it, absolutely go for it. Give it a shot. And just watch your CPU, watch and see, is this thing like really, am I taxing the processor on it pretty hard or anything like that? And just watch and see how it does. So to answer the question, yes, it's possible. Would I recommend it? Probably 80% no, I wouldn't recommend it. 20%, if you've got a screaming machine, then yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and I think too, because the other thing I've learned in the past, kind of the hard way, I think the thing we don't factor in when we're running presentation software is a lot of times it'll work great for the first year or two, and then all of a sudden it starts slowing down. It's because oftentimes we're loading a lot of videos on that machine and we're leaving them on there. Whether it's the background motion videos, or somebody did like a video announcement or something that's just worked in the presentation, which is a cool part of the presentation software, but that kind of stuff can slow it down as well. So like Tanner's saying, if you've got the option to run two. And I tell you what, I'm a pastor. I realize that budgets are budgets. And so a real neat trick that I've seen is there's some of these pieces like a laptop, or if you ever need to use an iPad or something like that. What I would do is I would go to my congregation. I'd say, hey, does anybody have this item, or this item? and let them know what some of the specs are. Some people might have them. Some people just upgrade because they got last year's model and they want next year's model. And so they'd be willing to donate that. But also when you put that list out there to your congregation, you may even have somebody that goes, hey, I've been really blessed by this ministry. I'm just going to donate directly to you getting that equipment. And so that's kind of a suggestion I'd give you. Now, as we move into other pieces, Peter Kauser's asking, can you show us that wireless mic that you just really briefly showed us, the Rode?
Absolutely. In fact, Peter, I'm going to answer, let's see, I don't know if I can post the link in the question and answer here, but yeah, let me switch back over. It's the wireless Rode. It's the Rode Wireless Go Compact. So let me switch the cameras again here. And they come in white or black. So my black ones are over there charging right now. These are the white ones here. I got both of them just because a lot of times I run I run both of these mics into one camera. And so this way I can look at the top of my camera and I know, oh, okay, speaker A is on the white pack and speaker B is on the black pack. And so I've got two different colors of them just for that reason. But they're about $199. And I've actually seen them at Best Buy before as well. You can pick them up off of Amazon. They're pretty awesome little microphones. The only caveat to these mics is that they're not, you can't get super far away from the receiver. So if you're going to be 20, 30 feet away, you'll probably be just fine. But if you're sanctuary, if you're gonna throw this thing on your pastor and he's gonna be 85 feet away, this may not be the way to go. These are, again, they're $200. So you're just not gonna have that range that you would with more of a professional system. So this is really more just for if someone's up to about 25, 30 feet away. I wouldn't use it if they're much further away than that.
And when you're thinking about your media ministry too, there may be something like that you don't use specifically for Sunday morning worship or for doing worship. But what I think is so powerful about this system is this can also be a production system throughout the week. So
Absolutely.
You can use that to record readers. You can use that to take video announcements to the next level, to record testimonial videos. And so whenever you're thinking about a system like this, and this is what I love about it, really consider the fact that this can really help you broaden your entire media ministry. And don't just think simply in that kind of Sunday morning kind of bubble.
Yeah. And to kind of answer what Scott's asking here, can different cameras be used or only this specific one? Absolutely, different cameras can be used. I've seen people, using webcams on this thing before. So basically, you just have to have some sort of output on the camera. You have to have some sort of HDMI output on the camera to run it in. The reason that we went with these Canon G50s is for just what you were talking about, Matt, is the ability to use them outside of a live stream environment. So you'll notice that these cameras are all 4K. And we went with 4K cameras, not necessarily because of the resolution for live streaming, because if you're going to be pushing a 4K stream out as a live stream, you're going to annihilate your network. No one is, a few people are streaming in full-blown 4K. But the reason that we went with those 4K cameras was for that production aspect of it. You can use this camera and its 4K sensor to go and film record your announcements or record interviews or something like that. And essentially what happens with this camera is that it becomes two angles because the sensor, the resolution is so high, you can actually zoom in and zoom out on the image, and there's enough data in the image, there's enough resolution to where it won't pixelate. So an example of that would be if, case in point, about a year ago, I was over in Israel, and we were working on a 52-part, we went to 52 different locations, filming and taking pictures, and we had a pastor that was speaking to each of those. Now, I didn't want to bring multiple cameras, multiple tripods and things like that. So I brought a small 4K camera that's basically the Sony version of this Canon. And I set that up and I shot a little bit wider. And so anytime I would need to make an edit, instead of having to jump to another camera or something like that, I would just punch in a little bit, because there's enough, again, there's enough resolution in that you can punch in a little bit and then jump back out to that wide shot again. And so that's the long story of why we went with this specific 4K camera. Again, you can use any camera that's got some sort of output. You can use cameras that have an SDI output. You just have to convert it to an HDMI output. And so you're not locked into that specific camera, but you do need to have something that has some sort of output that has another thing, a clean feed. So Google clean feed. You have to have a camera that when you send that output out, it doesn't have all the data. It doesn't have, how much battery is left or something like that. You have to be able to take that off of the display. And it did look like there was a question about that.
Yeah, there is, Dan. And Dan, you're so patient, man. You've had this question up there from the very beginning. It says, I have that camera, can't figure out how to get the output to not have the same thing as on the small screen on the camera. So I'm guessing like the time, date, stamp kind of stuff. And I think I remember you going over that in the training. So
I'm trying to remember exactly, and naturally the battery on this one is not there. I've got to ship this out. So the battery is dead in the box. But I believe this little display button here, I don't know if you can see that, you can toggle that display and turn displays on and off using that display button on the side of the camera. So Dan, hopefully that helps.
And Dan and kind of everybody on this call, I'll encourage you, we're going to shoot a follow-up email that's going to have this video. It's going to have the whole list of equipment that you guys can check out. And it'll also have Tanner's contact information. So feel free to reach out to Tanner, because he is, man, he's just a gift to the church. And I know sometimes with those simple things, there might not feel like a simple answer, but sometimes it's, it could be a quick thing that 10 other people have asked about. So definitely do that. But Dan, thanks for being so patient, waiting on that one. So do you want to move into more of like the camera and the setup and how it all hooks together, or where do you want to go from here?
Yeah, I mean, we can go into a little bit of the setup, and I would encourage also, I've got a whole tutorial series on YouTube that walks you through. There are 4 different videos that'll walk you through exactly how to set this up. I'm not in the studio right now. I'm at just in my home office, so I don't have all the cables and everything. But essentially, let me flip back over. We'll do kind of a quick rundown on how to set this thing up.
Cool.
So again, you've got your 4 inputs here. Your camera, you would just come out of the HDMI port on the camera, which on the Canon, I believe, is on the side right here. You'd come out of this this input on the side, and you would come into input 1. So HDMI cable comes out of the camera and just plugs into the input 1 right there. The next thing you would do, you saw in that shopping list, you need to have a monitor. Now there is some confusion on this, where, well, can I just use my my desktop or something like that? You need to have a dedicated monitor plugged into this in order to see all of your different camera angles. So it can't just be the same, you can't have one monitor that's running for your computer as well as this. You need to have a separate dedicated monitor plugged into this HDMI out, socket right here. That will show you all of your live views and things like that. So that would be probably the first thing you would plug in, so that you can see, okay, now I can see if camera angles or whatever my source is, now I can see that they're coming in. Then I would plug in my camera right here, input 1. The next thing that you could do, if you have a laptop that you're running presentation software or something like that on, you can plug that into input 2. So now you've got a camera angle showing your pastor, and then if I push 2, it'll jump to a full screen image of the sermon that he's, the sermon notes he's putting up, or a sermon slide that he's putting up.
Which
Or
really, Tanner, brings up a great question that Victoria
Mhm.
asked. Are you using just a static shot, or is someone running it? So when you designed the system, did you kind of design it with the thought that somebody was presenting and somebody was running?
Yeah, so I designed the system kind of, let me jump back over to my other camera real quick here. So I designed the system predominantly as a static shot. The tripod that's spec'd out in that system is more of a static tripod. It'll hold the weight of that camera, but to actually be able to pan and stuff like that, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because it doesn't have a really nice fluid head on that tripod. Now, that being said, I have seen a number of people that have punched in fairly tight using this camera, and they'll actually follow the pastor. As a pastor, whoever your speaker is walking. When we do larger events, we'll have 8 cameras, not necessarily on this system,
Yeah.
but we'll use a lot larger system, and we'll have 8 cameras, and a couple of those cameras are what we call roving cameras. So we'll even put people up on the stage that are wireless, holding cameras that are following an action along. So it doesn't have to be a static shot, but with the tripod that I spec'd out in this system, it would behoove you to kind of use it as a static shot. Now, if you want to spend a little bit of extra money and get a really nice, like a Manfrotto tripod that's got a nice fluid video head on it, absolutely grab one of those, and then you can pan. You can kind of follow your pastor along. You can do a tighter shot. But remember, if you mess up, you only have the one camera angle. And so if your pastor walks out of the shot or something like that, there's no other camera angle to cut to unless you have purchased the second camera and have brought that in. So if you're going to do a moving shot where you're going to be following someone along, I would have that second safety angle. We a lot of times will use a GoPro because they're super cheap and they're super wide. And we'll use that as our bailout camera. So we'll plug a GoPro into this via HDMI, and we'll have a super wide shot. And if for some reason our camera operator, the pastor is walking out frame or something like that, we can real quick switch over to that wide shot until the camera operator kind of gets its bearings and, gets lined back up again. And then you can pop back over to that wide shot or that tight shot. So absolutely, you can use multiple cameras. Up to 4 inputs, and it doesn't have to be static. But if you are going to go to a moving shot, I would invest in a nice fluid head video tripod.
Yeah, I think that's all. And then, too, as we're on some of those questions, Peter Dawson was asking, can the Atom take in 4K?
Ooh, that's a really good question. This specific model cannot take in 4K. It's 1080 only. As you move up to like the production studio 4K, I think it comes in at about $1,600. That can take in 4K. What I've seen a lot of people doing, which is really interesting, especially if you're going to be doing, you're going to be producing a sermon and editing it down, is that they'll take the camera, they'll put an SD card in this camera and they'll record on the camera in 4K. And then using editing software, they will link that 4K footage back to the master switch that the switcher is putting out that's being recorded to the hard drive. And all they'll do, they'll simply swap out that footage to a 4K footage. I don't know if that makes sense at all. So you link up that new or that internal camera recording that's being recorded to the card in the camera. You link that up to the switch and you just flip flop. You say, no, take the camera video instead of the video that's on the switcher.
Which I remember when we were talking in the training, because you are talking about kind of resolution and stuff like that now. You said whenever you're doing a live stream through a switcher, it's always going to pick the lowest resolution as the total resolution. Is that right?
It is. So if I have a 720 camera put in here, it's going to max out at 720. It's not going to say this camera's at 720, this camera's at 1080. So you're actually going to be able to set what that resolution is that's coming out. But if you have a 720 camera in, you're not going to be able to send out as 1080.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. And then too, on the camera, we got a couple great questions coming in. Battery backup. Can we charge this camera while it's recording or streaming?
Absolutely. And I would encourage that. Have the camera plugged into to the wall while you're streaming. The battery is pretty decent. It would probably get you through a sermon. If your pastor is anything like my pastor, it will not get you through a sermon. So,
I don't know what you're saying, Tanner, and I don't know if I like it, but
but yeah, absolutely. Plug the camera into the wall. It comes with a wall adapter, and that's how we run all of our systems. Be it this camera or any of the Blackmagic cameras. They're always, when we can, we're always plugged into something.
And talking Blackmagic, Dave has a question here. What are the minimum requirements for a laptop to be able to run Blackmagic and OBS?
Ooh, that is a really good question. I know that I hate to send people to Google, but I know that on Blackmagic's website, if you go to the support where you would download that switcher software, and again, that's linked. I believe it's on tutorial 4 in my videos. If you go and click on that link, it will tell you what the minimum system requirements are for both OBS and for Blackmagic software. The Blackmagic software, I know it's not a very robust program, so it doesn't really require a massive computer. I've ran it on an old school HP laptop before that's got 2 gigs of RAM maybe, and it's done just fine. The OBS software, on the other hand, because it is handling video and things like that, needs to be a little bit more robust. So I would encourage you, check out Blackmagic's website and OBS Studio, and just double check the system requirements. I just don't want to lead you astray on that one and tell you something.
And then Victor's got another great question here. He says, I realize this is outside of the setup you're presenting, but is there a PTZ camera and controller you recommend?
Victor, that's really interesting that you brought that up. So I was just working on a team that produced a big venture conference about 2 weeks ago. And we used 4, I believe they were called PTZ optics cameras. I'm going to try to pull them up and share the screen with you. And they were, I was pretty impressed. So I think, let's see here. Oh, let's share over. There we go. I think it was this camera right here that we were using. This little PTZ optics. It's got your HDMI. It also has SDI. If you're going to run, a really, really long run, you can plug into SDI and then convert it to HDMI at the switcher. And I do know that we were using this joystick controller. The only qualm that I had about that controller was that it was super, super touchy, and I could not figure out for the life of me how to tone it back a little bit. Whenever I hit the joystick, that camera would, fly around in 360 degrees instantaneous. But I was really impressed with the footage that was coming off of those PTZ optic cameras. So that's the only time I've used the PTZ with this system. But again, I was pretty impressed with it. So check out PTZ optics. I know that there are a ton of other ones out there. That is just the only one that, fairly recently I had experience with.
And I tell you what, we run PTZ cameras in our church. And looking at the video that the camera you picked out grabbed, comparing that to our PTZ cameras, like and obviously I'm not a professional. I don't notice a huge difference. So I think if you're watching this and you're like, oh, do we have to go with I don't necessarily think you would. And maybe you could talk even sanctuary size, because based on where some people were sitting in the gym, looking at how that camera worked, that would roughly be the same distance you would find in like a 200 plus seat sanctuary,
Okay. Yeah.
probably.
So I didn't measure off the gym, but the last church that we kind of put one of these in, we measured it off at 67 feet from where they had their front of house set up to where the stage and the pastor was, and it seemed like it did a fairly decent, chest to head shot at 67 feet. Much past 67 feet or so, or 70 feet or so, you're going to want to maybe move up to a camera that's got a bit more of a zoom capability on it, or even better, move your camera closer. If you can move your camera closer, that's always going to be so much better. Especially this day and age, it's this weird shift where most people in church they're used to seeing cameras in there now, used to knowing like, hey, the reach of this sermon and this in-person experience that you're having right now is actually going much further. So relay out your chairs, think about, okay, we're not just preaching, we're not just doing an in-person, but this is also, we have a whole nother online ministry. And the more you make people aware of that, the less likely they're, to kind of look at a camera and be like, oh, why is a camera in the sanctuary or something like that. So if you can move the camera closer, you're always going to have a better image if that camera is closer.
Yeah,
to the
Tanner,
person.
I 110% agree with that. In fact, I would encourage you, if you're working in a church, before you spend more money on a bigger, more powerful camera, what I would do is I'd start with vision, and I'd do exactly what Tanner's saying. And I would say to your congregation, hey, especially now more than ever, people get it that there is a whole group of people that want to be in church. See, it used to be before coronavirus, people's big thing was, well, if they want to be in church, they should come. And, you'd be like, well, there's shut-ins or this, or that. Now you've got this whole group of people that want to be in church, can't be in church in some regions still. We're living in one of those regions.
Yeah.
And, it's a great time to say, hey guys, this camera footprint is small. You're going to look past it. But if you are looking at it, see this as 100 more people in worship. People that are getting connected that wouldn't normally walk through the doors of the building or couldn't walk through the doors of the building. And I guarantee you, when you take time to vision like that, oftentimes that cures the issue.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, thinking of it, this isn't just a tool. It's not just like a website or something like this. This is a whole other ministry. And to kind of springboard off of what you were saying, Matt, like when you live stream a service, it can be shared. So you may have 100 people on watching during a Sunday morning, but it's being captured and they're sharing it. So you have no clue what the reach is. And now this ministry that, may just be 100 people or so is actually 1,500, 2,000, because you don't know how many times that video or that sermon is going to be played and replayed or shared to someone's neighbor or someone's family or something that can't make it out, especially this day and age, like you said. So it's a ministry. We even, we have a chat going while we're doing our live streams, and it's rough. Like you almost need a pastor sitting just on that chat, because you sit there and seeing some of the things that people are dealing with. And, we pray with people, over the chats, or we get their information and make sure like, hey, we want to follow up with you. Like that was pretty heavy what you were talking about during the service. Like, let's chat, let's go get coffee. Let's, follow up. So it's a full blown ministry. This isn't just a tool. It's not just, I don't want to loop in with like a soundboard, because I even believe that, anything in the tech it's a ministry. But yeah, shift your thinking from it's like the lights in the church or something like that, to no, this is an online ministry. This is another online campus. It's one of the big words that we always use. It's an extension of the church that has a massive reach, just like the church building. So
Oh, I love that thought. It's huge. So Jumping back into, we haven't talked much about internet, and
Mhm.
Adrian has asked a really great question here. What on the Atom, if you're having a problem with signal or anything, is it internet bandwidth? Maybe what kind of bandwidth do we need? And if you do have an issue with signal, is it better to shut down, reconnect? Like what do you normally suggest?
Um, so let's approach the bandwidth one first. And I'm definitely do not. I'm more of a video guy, so there's way smarter people out there than I am on this. From what I've seen, to launch a 1080 stream, it suggests don't freak out. It suggests having 12 megabytes up. Um, your upload and your download are very, very different. So your download is how fast things are coming in. Your upload is how fast you're sending something up. So we're in a Zoom meeting right now, and me talking right now is using my upload speed. It's going up to the internet so you guys can hear it. Me watching a YouTube video is my downstream. So you need to have, they suggest you should have about 12 up to have a solid 1080p full blown high definition live stream. I've done it with 6. So it is possible you may run into some glitches depending on what system you're using to or what platform you're sending your live stream up to. You can adjust some of those settings. You can adjust those settings in OBS as well that we use as an encoder, to say, okay, hey, if my upstream drops or something, automatically take the quality down instead of just dropping the connection altogether. So there's some settings in OBS, and there's some really, really good tutorials out there on how to do this. There's some settings in OBS that you can adjust to where if your signal strength starts to drop, it doesn't just kill your stream altogether. It just diminishes the quality of it. Now, you can make the decision on, do I want it to just, if it's going down to 360 or standard definition or something like that, do I want it to just cut off, or do I want it to go ahead and go down that low? But yeah, as far as upload, or your actual stream, I would say much lower than 4 up, 4 megs up, you're going to start running into some issues. At 4, you could probably get away with like a 720 stream without having too much of an issue. But the more upload speed that you've got, the better. Now, if it's starting to drop, then yes, in some situations, it is better to send out a little message on Facebook or YouTube, say, hey, we're having some trouble. We're going to try reconnecting. And we're going to try to put it out again. In all of these situations, I would really, really strongly recommend recording your service. If you're recording via OBS, or if you're recording directly on the Atom Mini, or if you're even just recording to the SD card on the camera, record your services. Because if you run into that issue and a jetliner flies by and your internet goes out, you can at least take that recording from the service and upload it to your website or your social media channels later and say, hey, we're really sorry. A jetliner flew by and our internet went away, but here's the service. Here's what you missed. Here it is.
Yeah, and I love that point, because I was thinking the same thing. And the other redundancy plan that we actually are going to start implementing at our church, especially when it comes, anytime we've had a bigger service during this pandemic, we didn't used to do this, but anytime we have a bigger service during the pandemic, we pre-record the message and like an abbreviated service just in case. And then what that allows my tech team to do is, oh no, the stream went down, which doesn't happen often. But of course, if it's Easter or if it's Christmas Eve's coming up,
that's when it's going to go down.
Something's going to happen. Having that video backup where my tech team can just hit it and the whole thing's running, and there's a message from me or somebody that's leading service going, hey, we're so sorry, we've had technical issues, but we still have the message and a worship service for you. So let's join together and worship. That's a great way to also do it. And that's another really strong redundancy plan that you can use your same system to pre-record. So
yep. Absolutely. No, that's a great way to do it. I've heard of people that will pre-record all their sermons and they put them on YouTube, but they just put it as unlisted. And then instantaneously, if something happens, they just go and say it's public. They go into their chat forums on their phone because the church internet's down, and they say, "Hey, here's the link. Go check it out." So, anytime you can have some sort of safety net, any type of redundancy or something like that is always good. And that's another reason that we spec'd out this camera. It actually has two SD card slots in it, so you can pop two cards in there. In this day and age, you can get cards for really, really cheap, and you'll have plenty of space on that camera to record. You won't have to worry about running out of space on the camera. So anytime you can record and have some sort of backup plan is the best.
Yeah, this has been such a huge help, Tanner. And I want to take just a few minutes here to encourage you guys. Some of you are on this call, you're connected maybe to a network of churches, or maybe you're connected with a district. And so I'd encourage you, something that we did. One of the reasons we brought Tanner in for a live stream conference is, it made more sense for us to bring a group of churches together to all go through this together. And a couple really powerful things come out of that. One, it defers a lot of cost if you're bringing a group of churches together. And then you can bring Tanner out live. You get more one-on-one coaching, which is so helpful. But the equipment package, when we signed up with this with Tanner, we said, hey, here are these churches that are signed up. He pulled together all the equipment for them. He drop shipped the equipment to our church. So it was all sitting there ready. He came in town. He set everything up. In fact, it was so funny. He came in town and I had to end up leaving town. So I was like, hey, it's great to see you. I'll see you in a few days. But he got to our church. He got everything set up for the churches. And then it was really great having him sit down and actually walk your tech team through setting stuff up and through then running a live stream and some great basic tips for that. So if you're connected with the group, I'd encourage you, talk to your district or talk to your network of churches, or maybe find a few churches around you and go, hey guys, let's come together and do this together. I think the other really helpful thing with that was now we have 21 churches in our district that are all running similar equipment, similar system. And so if one church has a problem, chances are somebody at another church is able to more quickly help them out. So you kind of get to do this in community. And what I love is it raises up the level of all the churches and the live stream we're presenting, because to Tanner's point, this isn't just a bunch of equipment. This isn't a light in your building that you flip on. This is a ministry that literally impacts people's lives. And I just want to share with you guys one story. I was doing a baptism 2 weeks ago, and the couple was newer, and so I was just asking them. I said, my favorite question is, where do you live in New Jersey? Because we've got like a bajillion townships, right? And they go, oh, we live in Sleepy Hollow, New York. And I was like, that's kind of far. How did you hear about Bethlehem? And they're like, oh, we Googled you guys and we've been joining with you on live stream for a long time, a lot of the pandemic. And they said when we came time to baptize our kid, we wanted to come out to Bethlehem to do it. So literally their first time in person in our church was baptizing their firstborn son. And that's just the power of the tool you have in front of you. Yeah. It really is a ministry that connects people. And so that's why I just love the ministry, Tanner, that you're doing. And I would just encourage you guys, reach out to Tanner, connect with Tanner. He's got amazing resources on his website. He really is a gift to the church, and he's a gift to small and medium-sized churches too. And I really appreciate you stepping into that ministry niche.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that, Matt. And yeah, it is. I mean, the neat thing about a workshop is that they're about 6 hours long, but we can go much, much deeper into the system and specifically what you need in your church. Some of you may not need, presentation software. Some of you do. Some of you want lower thirds down where, as you're singing songs or hymns and you have the words pop up. We can go into all of that stuff and really dive deeper into all of the other things, as opposed to just, here's how to hook it up. good luck, run with it. We can do kind of more one-on-one. We can really kind of dive in. There's so much capability with this system. And I'm not married to just this one little system. If you come out and you say like, hey, we really like that, but we want to expand it. In fact, I've got one right behind me there. There's an 8 input system back there. There's a 4K one in the closet. Like we can expand it and make it bigger and bigger to whatever it is that you're thinking you want to do. But this was just a great place to start to get people used to it. And the beauty of it with this system here, and there are great systems out there. Roland makes a good one, Ross makes one, Panasonic. This is just the one that I've used for the last 7 or 8 years now, and I know it really well, and it hasn't left me dry yet. And but anyway, the beauty is that if you learn this system at $595 for this little switcher, and you decide later on, I want to move up to a much bigger one, I want to be able to run multiple live streams all at once, the software, the connection, everything, it's all the same. The software is identical. You're going to be looking at the exact same thing. So that's the beauty of it. If you want to scale it and go up to a really big system, it all looks the same. You've already learned. This is like the training airplane. You get on this and all the consoles, all the buttons, everything, it all works the same. So that's another really neat part about it. But yeah, I would love if anybody wants to put on a workshop, or I love coming and working with your volunteers. I've been a volunteer before, and so I try to approach it from how would I want to learn? I'm a very hands-on person. And so I would love, I've come out before and just done a weekend with a church before and worked with their volunteers, and it's culminated in us running a Sunday morning service together. And me being there and saying, all right, guys, we've worked this whole weekend. I'll be right back here watching and worshiping along. And if you run into an issue, tap me on the shoulder, or let's drive this thing together. And so I love working with volunteers. I love working with leadership in churches. So any way it can be a resource, please don't hesitate to reach out.
I really appreciate that. Okay, we've got a couple more questions that we're going to let be snuck in under the buzzer too. So these are the last 2 questions, guys. But I feel like they're good enough to run with, and they're kind of connected. Dave asks, can I live stream to Facebook without OBS? If so, how? Obviously, I think you can do it through the Atom Mini.
Yes, you absolutely can. So you can live stream to Facebook and YouTube natively, just using the Atom Mini and using the software, the Blackmagic Atom software. So when you download that software, you'll see outputs over on the side of the software. I wish I had it up and connected right now. This may be actually a really good tutorial video, Dave. So you can absolutely stream directly to Facebook and YouTube, and there are ways to send it to other locations using just the Atom Mini. The Atom Mini works as its own encoder. You don't have to have OBS. OBS is a free piece of software, and it does in some cases give you some expandability. You can do some more things, and sometimes it's a little bit easier using OBS depending on your volunteers, but you don't have to stream through OBS. You can stream directly from the Atom.
That's huge. And then that'll be great to see that updated training video there. And we'll keep you guys posted on any new videos he throws out. And then Peter asks, can you explain how you go from the Atom to actually live streaming through a computer? What program do you use to stream, or programs would you suggest?
Ooh, Peter, not to pass the buck on this one, but tutorial number 4 hits that really, really hard. And so I encourage people to use OBS, to use as your web-based encoder. And tutorial number 4 will really walk you right through it. Essentially, the short end is this will come into your live streaming, into OBS, into your encoder software. It'll look like a webcam. And then you just select it. You can actually use it for Zoom as well. So if I had this hooked up right now, I could switch between my different camera angles, and this would come into Zoom just looking like a webcam. So that's the really short and dirty way to put it. Yes, you can just bring it in looking like a webcam, but check out tutorial number 4.
Yeah. And we're gonna send you guys all those tutorial videos. We're gonna take just a little bit longer to shoot this follow-up email to you, but the follow-up email is gonna include the link to this video. It's also gonna include the list that Tanner has with all the products that we've talked about today to put that system together, and then of course his list of tutorial videos. So thank you guys so much for taking the time. Tanner, thank you for taking the time. I'm going to encourage you guys, reach out to Tanner if you have more questions. Reach out to him if you want to connect, or if you're like, this is cool, but we need a more personalized system. Tanner builds incredible systems, so reach out to him. And he, of course, is used to working with volunteers. And I want to encourage you guys, continue sharing these videos out. If you found this helpful, share it out with somebody else. Share out the Kairos Network mailing list. Because we've got more videos coming in December. We're going to be doing one with Mac Lake talking about the 8 areas of leadership. Mac developed and forgot he developed an online course. And so he is going to let us and the Kairos Network utilize that course. And he's going to walk us through that training. And it's incredible. And of course, you'll be seeing more of Tanner because I just love working with this guy. So Tanner, thank you so much for doing what you do for your ministry and for your blessing to the church.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks, Matt.
All right. You guys have a good one, and we'll see you next time right here on the Kairos Network webinars.